All right, hey there, friends and family. My name's Bix, obviously. This is my partner Kay, and we do a little radio show called Bix and K here at the University of San Diego, and we're trying to expand things a little bit this year, make it a little more interesting, so we're adding Facebook Live to our portfolio. Basically what we do, just give our opinions on sports. This is going to be fun, it's interactive, you guys can comment, listen in either here on Facebook Live, Mondays from 2:30 to 4, or you could listen through our university radio, uofsdmedia.com, same time every week. So yeah, let us know what you think.
This gives you a really good chance to be interactive, so please comment and we can use that for further shows. We're really excited to get things going. You're going to hear us introduce ourselves again as we're about to get going in a second. But yeah, listen in, comment, and we'll get going in just a second.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, this is Bix and K Sports Talk Radio. My name is Kay.
I'm Bix.
Most of you probably know me considering we're friends.
We're just introducing ourselves again for Kay's Facebook Live feed over here.
That's right, we're going to set this up. You guys can listen on uofsdmedia.com or you can listen in right here on Facebook. We're trying to get going as soon as we can. And we'll have a good show this week. This is our first week of the year. We're going to be doing it every Monday from 2:30 to 4 or 4:30 to 6 on the Central Time. Let's do this.
All right.
Let me just get set up here. How are you on the landscape? Or I'm going to set mine up like that. Hey guys, hope that's good.
Here we go. Ready?
Yeah, I will be in a second.
All right, and we are on the radio.
Sort of. I'll set it up in a second. Here we go.
Hey there, and welcome back, USD, to your favorite sports talk radio show, Bix and K. Kay and I are so excited to be back with you here for another year, and we're looking to make things bigger and better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to be back here in the studio. My name is Kay. That is my friend Bix. We're really excited to get back. Like you said, this is going to be my last year, actually, so I'm excited to go out with a bang, so to speak, and continue the legacy of sports talk here at USD.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. Unfortunately, it took us a couple weeks to get things up and running again, but now, well into October, we're ready to talk some sports, and yeah, let's have some fun. We got a few new features for you guys this year. Those of you listening right now on Facebook Live, we kind of explained what's going on. We're trying to expand, so you can either listen on my Facebook Live or on Kay's Facebook Live, whichever you prefer, or you can listen right here on uofsdmedia.com from 2:30 to 4 every Monday.
That's right, we're trying some new things out here. We're going to be switching from the Periscope platform to Facebook Live to have more interactive social media presence. We're going to hop right into it. For those of you on UofSD Media, we are going to be live from 2:30 to 4 on the West Coast here. You can figure out the time zones yourself if you are on the East Coast or on the Central time zones.
Yeah, all right, so let's get into it. It's been a long summer. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to cover everything that's happened in the last 4 months in the next hour or so, but we will, at the end of our show, get to a few highlights of what happened this summer, highs and lows, all that sort of stuff. But right now, I just want to dive right into what we got in front of us. Okay, let's start with the NFL.
Absolutely. You know, that's our favorite league to follow. It's the most exciting, most profitable, and there's a reason that we stop and tune in every Sunday. There were some pretty good matchups today, but first I want to talk about the Cowboys and Packers game. Two really big markets, two interesting storylines, and playing at Lambeau didn't really end up as most people would have suspected it would be.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, myself included, thought that the Packers and Aaron Rodgers would just steamroll the Dallas Cowboys, especially being at home. I don't think the Packers had lost to the Cowboys at Lambeau since 2007, 2008, and before that, it was way back in the 90s. So it's a series that, you know, the last couple of years the Packers have dominated, and I don't think, despite the Dak and Zeke show,
Right.
I don't think anyone expected the Cowboys to come in and beat the Packers like they did.
Right, and the first question I want to ask you right off the bat, for those of you who might have not got a chance to watch it, the Cowboys single-handedly beat the Packers, just manhandled them. It was a glorious thing to watch if you're a Packer hater or a Cowboy fan. But I want to ask you, is this more of a testament to Dak and Zeke and maybe that offensive line, or is it more a testament to the way Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones have kind of run this organization from the coaching and managing standpoint?
On that one, I'm going to go with Dak and Zeke.
Okay.
I mean, you look at what these guys have done all year. Jason Garrett's been around for a couple of years. It's not like he's been out of this world crazy. I mean, yes, he's a good coach, but I don't think all the success can immediately just be attributed to him. And Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones. He's always going to do what he's going to do, despite what people think. So I really do believe that it's a testament to Dak and Zeke and what they've done for this offense. I mean, the Cowboys have lost only once this year, and a lot of the talk right now is revolving around what the hell is going to happen when Tony Romo comes back. I mean, Dak himself has said this is Romo's team, but I don't know, man. When you look at it, I don't see how you can upset the momentum that the Cowboys have right now. Why would you mess with that? Dak is playing so well.
Right, and here's what's going to happen, right? I agree with you. Dak's playing well. There's chemistry, that's really taken off for the Dallas Cowboys, something we haven't seen in a while. But with an owner like Jerry Jones, a coach like Jason Garrett, and an organization like the Dallas Cowboys, Tony Romo is going to come back. It's all about legacy. It's all about tradition, so to speak. And
But
they
should
have to,
he come back?
He shouldn't. But they have to pay homage to the fact that he is their franchise quarterback. This might be his last year as a franchise quarterback. Because Dak Prescott is definitely the quarterback of the future, Dak to the future. But I think Tony Romo comes back and they make a strong playoff run, but I think it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the brilliance that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, but the problem is do you want to stick with your legacy or do you want to win games? That's what it comes down to, because not that Tony Romo's not going to win some football games, but why would you mess with what you have right now? They're 4-1, 5-1 at this point. I just don't see a valid argument behind bringing Romo back right now.
No, I agree with you on that. But I think it's going to happen, and we'll just have to wait and see. I believe Romo is expected back not this week, but the next.
Week 8, yeah.
Week 8. Now, flipping, let's go on the other side of the ball. The Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, everybody looks healthy. Great defense. Mike McCarthy, great coach at home. What's happening? Why did they just fall apart like that?
It's hard to kind of put into words, because this is a team that was kind of revived this year.
Mm-hmm.
They played well the first couple weeks, and everyone expected them to come back. Rodgers was solid. It's not like he didn't have a ton of time to throw yesterday. I think it was more just the Cowboys outplaying the Packers in the end, which is hard to believe, but that's what happened.
That is what happened. But here's the thing: when you look at the film of Aaron Rodgers in this game, he looked off. He looked way off. He looked hesitant. He wasn't finding the right guys at the right time. He had time, and he was making certain throws at the right time. But when you think of a guy like Rodgers in his prime, the intelligence behind him, he's the guy that's going to win you a game against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I get it. The Cowboys this year are sort of magical. I mean, I don't think that's the wrong word to use at this point in the season. But Aaron Rodgers at home, okay, is supposed to lock that away.
He is, and that's going to go down as one that got away, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a guy that stays down for very long. He's an extremely talented quarterback, like you were just saying. He's a really smart guy. He had an uncharacteristic game, but in the end, I don't think that affects him too much in the long term. Now, the interesting thing is what's going to happen in that division, though, because no matter how well Rodgers plays, I don't know that the Packers can overtake the Vikings, a team that started 5-0. Not that this was unexpected, but no one thought realistically that they would be undefeated through 5 weeks of the season and be the last undefeated team remaining.
I guess that's just the beauty of U.S. Bank Stadium. But you bring up a good point. What's the playoff picture going to look like? I mean, granted, we're only 6 weeks into it, But on the NFC side of things, do you think that the Packers make the wild card in that tough conference?
I think they do in the end. I think they get enough wins to make the wild card. But if you look at the standings right now, I mean, the NFC is pretty set, minus the East, in my opinion. You look over at the NFC North, I think the Vikings are going to win that division.
Mm-hmm.
In the South, the Falcons should run away with things because no one's going to challenge them. The Buccaneers, the Saints, the Panthers are 1-5. I just don't see anyone realistically giving them any sort of trouble.
They locked that one in.
And then in the NFC West, this one could get interesting, but with the Cardinals' rough start, I don't know that the Seahawks are going to stumble enough to give them the division back, sitting at 4-1 on top right now.
Yeah, the Seahawks are a championship caliber team. I think you make a strong point. That division should be interesting down the stretch, but I think at the end we'll go with your prediction. But, okay, what about the 2 wild card spots there in the NFC?
The 2 wild card spots are... it's going to be interesting. I think the Packers definitely take 1. I think they're the best team in that situation to get that first wild card spot. And then it's going to come down to how the second half of the season shakes out, how these teams are going to be able to bounce back after a couple tough losses. But I think the Cardinals wind up getting the other wild card spot. I think they're a good enough team that they will rebound from their 2-3 start and grab one of those spots.
And speaking of the Cardinals, they play tonight on Monday Night Football on the West Coast. That'll start at 5:30 on ESPN against the Jets at home for Arizona. How do you think that game ends up?
I think it's pretty clear-cut. Cardinals win. Carson Palmer is back this week, I believe, after being out last week. I think he gets them back on track. Larry Fitzgerald has been huge for the Cardinals this year. Not that he isn't always a big factor, but he's kind of taken the reins this year. I think he's gonna get him the win and get a little help from their shutdown defense.
No, I agree with you there. A big point I have to make is that the Arizona Cardinals, with Bruce Arians at the helm at the head coaching position, have been outstanding in primetime games. You can go back and look at their record. I don't have it in front of me, but from recent memory under the Arians era, they've been lights out. So I think, and they're playing the New York Jets, who are a little banged up and a little off their game, so to speak. So we'll see what happens, but I agree with you. The Cardinals win by at least a touchdown or more.
Yeah, and another big storyline I wanted to touch on right quick is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
What the hell did Roger Goodell do? He unleashed a beast, and the rest of the NFL must be shaking in their boots right now watching this guy play.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, with Belichick sort of paving the way through the first 4 games, going 3-1 with Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo. He kind of set Tom Brady up to say, you know what, we have the pieces, we have Gronk, we have Edelman and Amendola, we have a strong enough defense and a strong enough running game. I think that was a wild card spot right there. I think you need to come in, we need to go, and we need to go 15-1 at this rate. I mean, they look unstoppable.
Yeah, and I mean, for my friends that know me back home and here at USD, you know that I haven't always been the biggest fan of the Patriots, especially Belichick and Tom Brady. But what they have done this year has just been incredible, and you're going to be hard-pressed to find a team that's going to stop these guys from rolling on.
Right, and now that we're on the topic of the AFC, I want to really quick touch on the Steelers. Do you think, now that Big Ben has the torn meniscus, do you think that seriously hurts their chance of making the playoffs? Before we even jump into, Super Bowl contenders, does that hurt them in a big way?
Yeah, I mean, with any team, if you lose your starting quarterback, especially with a guy of the caliber of Big Ben, that's going to be a big hit. Now, the Steelers do have a couple pieces in place to, float the boat while Big Ben is gone. I think
Sure.
Landry Jones can come in and be a viable replacement and actually do well. He's had experience before. He has the weapons around him when you talk about guys like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell that can carry that team while Big Ben is gone. It won't be easy, and they're going to need a guy like Landry Jones to step up, but I think it's possible that they stay in the playoff picture.
And you make a good point because Landry Jones can get the job done with that running game, but a big part of it is that division is weak right now. The Ravens look good, don't get me wrong, and the Bengals are always in the picture, but I think they get solid wins at home against both of those teams, and I think they can win that division even with Big Ben out.
Wasn't even worth mentioning the 0-6 Cleveland Browns, was it?
It wasn't, and we'll get into my Titans in a second.
It seems they've been left out of the whole Believe Land turnaround in that city, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the Steelers will wind up winning that division. It's one of the weaker divisions at this point right now after the first couple weeks. But they're seriously going to need to get some production out of their skill guys if they want to stay afloat while Big Ben is out.
Absolutely. Now looking at another division, the AFC South. For those of you that don't know me, that's
division.
Right. For those of you that don't know me on Bix's feed or on U of SD Media, I know everybody on my Facebook knows this. I am a huge Titans fan, as in I will buy Titans hoodies, ponchos, won't sleep before a big game, that type of thing. The Titans got it done yesterday against the 0-6 Cleveland Browns. They are now 3-3, but that division, my division, looks wide open. Where do you stand on who's going to take that one?
This is a really tough one to call, and I think we may have gotten a little more clarity with that Sunday night game last night. This was a game between the Houston Texans and Indianapolis Colts that halfway through, I thought the Colts were going to run away with it, and we're just going to take control and get back into that division and eventually maybe wrap it up and win it themselves. But the Houston Texans showed us last night that they are resilient. That was an incredible come-from-behind win, an extremely important win, and it leaves them at 4-2 atop the division. So, at this point, I think it's anyone's ball game. I don't think the Colts are out of it yet, but that loss last night sure didn't help. They have a guy like Andrew Luck that has the ability to get them back in the race, but I'm looking at the Texans and the Titans right now as probably the two favorites.
Yeah.
Which I know is music to your ears.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely wonderful to hear that. So now that we've decided Patriots, Steelers, Texans, or Titans, who takes that last division in the NFC West, or AFC West, which is close to our hearts, considering they play about 5 miles down the road, the Chargers.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the Chargers that take the AFC West. This is going to be another great division this year. The Kansas City Chiefs got a great win this weekend against the Oakland Raiders, which was really important for them to kind of stay in the mix. So you have three teams at the top there right now, with the Raiders and Broncos both at 4-2 and the Chiefs at 3-2, that are all going to be competing come the end of the season for this division title. Right now, history says the Broncos are probably the favorites, you have to think. Trevor Siemian's done a pretty good job quarterbacking that team. Really, all he has to do is provide just enough offense so that their defense can take care of things and they can get the win. But I would not be surprised if the Raiders made a run late in the season. They're a team that's looking really good. They got off to a strong start this year, and who knows? They might want to grab Oakland a championship before they move to Las Vegas in a couple of years.
Yes, I did want to. You mentioned it already, but the Nevada Senate has approved the Las Vegas Raiders to be a team starting in 2019. We'll see if the owners approve of it, but I think it passes. I think the stigma of Vegas has gone away with the ever-growing population that they have, and the fact that they'll be able to build a smaller stadium, 59, 65, somewhere around there, and fill it out with away teams visiting when Denver gets cold, Oakland, gets a bit nippy, other AFC South, New England, they're in the AFC. When those teams those cities get cold, they come to Vegas.
This is still another topic that we differ on. I hate the idea of putting an NFL team in Vegas for whatever reason. I mean, I could name a few different reasons. One, namely, you draft a kid first round, give him a whole lot of money, and throw him in Las Vegas. What do you think's going to happen? There aren't too many good things that can come out of that. I digress. I don't think it's the best idea to throw a team in London, and it's especially going to hurt a city like Oakland, losing the Raiders and potentially losing the Golden State Warriors too in a couple years. That's going to be a huge hit to their economy. And with such a loyal fan base, it's just a shame to see their teams taken from them. I hope that for Oakland's sake, the Raiders stay in that city, but it's looking more and more every day like this Vegas thing is a sure thing.
Disclaimer for my Facebook guys out there. Bix is a Bay Area guy. He is a San Francisco guy, but Oakland is close to him. I disagree with the fact that the Oakland Raiders, with that horrible field and that organization as it is right now.
Oh, they need a new field for sure,
Yeah,
but I wish they would stay in Oakland.
That's not going to happen. And now moving on real quick, staying in the NFL, the NFC East, going back to the NFC, perhaps the most interesting and most entertaining division in football. We're talking about Odell and the kicking net. We're talking about the Cowboys. We're talking about Kirk Cousins. You like that? Who takes that one at the end?
Another division that right now is extremely close and not too long ago was probably considered the worst division in football, arguably, with maybe the AFC South. But now, a couple solid teams. I mean, no one has a record under 500 at this point in the season. But in the end, we talked a lot about the Cowboys a couple minutes ago. I think they wrap it up, even if Tony Romo does come back and take the reins. I think it should be Dak, but I think the Cowboys win it in the end.
Yeah, the holes in the Eagles are showing a little bit more, as we're going forward. I wish the best for Carson Wentz, though. I think he's going to be a heck of a player, heck of a quarterback.
He's doing a great job over in Philadelphia.
But yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting going forward how that NFC is going to turn, because honestly, you could have a different winner every year for the next 5-6 years. I mean, the Redskins look pretty good. The Eagles look pretty good.
Yeah.
The Giants look pretty good.
Yeah, it's anyone's game. It's just going to come down to who has the hot hand at the end of the season and who's getting the best play out of their quarterback and out of their defense.
That's right.
So.
All right. Throughout 6 weeks, real quick, I want to ask you about, like I had mentioned, you're a 49ers fan. I want to ask you, how are you reacting to this Colin Kaepernick situation 6 weeks in? I don't want to spend too much time on it because that's ESPN and everybody else is already doing that.
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Everyone's got their own opinion on.
But as a 49ers fan,
as a 49ers fan, I mean, obviously, the things that Kaepernick is trying to draw attention to are incredibly important and need to be addressed. They're issues that are ingrained in our country right now, and they're not things that are just gonna go away with one protest. I completely respect his ability to protest. I think it's great that he's bringing attention to such an important topic. But I personally just wish he would do it in a different way. I'm not a fan of the kneeling during the national anthem. Again, I still believe in what Colin Kaepernick is protesting. I just wish he could have found another medium to do that. And he's been criticized a whole lot for it. It's a tough issue because, like I said, it is something that's important, but there are a lot of people in this country, myself included, that don't necessarily think that's the way to go about it, especially since it's an issue that if it was resolved in 6 months, I could see him doing that, but try as we might, it's such a difficult thing that it's not something that's going to be resolved in 6 months. So that brings up the question that many people have asked of, when will it end?
Yeah.
Because he could be kneeling for the rest of his life.
He could. But I do respect the fact out of Colin Kaepernick that he is he's donating a sizable amount to the open charities that people can follow on his website. And another thing I do respect is that as a player, now he's gotten the start and he's restructured his contract so that maybe there's more, cap space to move forward in the offseason. And we'll see where that leads under the Chip Kelly regime. As off the field, I agree. I don't think it's handled the right way, but you have to listen to what he's saying. And I know you're saying the same
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And the other interesting thing, too, I saw kind of playing devil's advocate for my own opinion, is so much these days we get on athletes about not using the social platform that they have in order to affect change in this country.
Good point.
And all of a sudden Colin Kaepernick's doing this, and people are getting upset.
Right.
And I completely understand that because
it's new.
Like I mentioned, I wish he wouldn't do it in the way that he was doing it, but I think it's really valuable to have athletes starting to speak out like this and take an important stance on these social issues, because really they have a huge effect on what goes on in this country, and those are really powerful voices to have behind your movement. So
100%.
With that, we've touched on Kaepernick.
That's right.
And we can move on a little bit. We've talked a whole lot about the NFL, so I wanna move on from that a little and go to Major League Baseball.
Yeah, actually, before we move on, I want to take some Facebook comments and see your reactions to them. I've seen a couple people say that, going back to Tony Romo, that he should be traded and get some extra cap space to get more weapons. What's your thought on that?
Sorry, one more time. I had to fix my Facebook Live feed.
You're fine. This is the first time doing this. I've seen a couple people. Ivan Purcell has commented on my Facebook saying they should trade Tony Romo to gain extra cap space, free up that big contract.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
I 100% agree. I don't know that trading him mid-season is the right thing to do. I mean, you want to respect a guy like Tony Romo. You do want to win games, but he's done a whole lot for you, and he would be valuable to have to mentor Dak for the rest of the season. But I think in the offseason, you look at offloading him. If the Cowboys are really committed to this youth movement that they seem to be going through right now, I think trading Tony Romo would be a great thing for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and one last thing Munnen says, regarding the Colin Kaepernick situation, and I'll quote him here, it's something they haven't seen before. I think he's talking about the players and the fans, and they don't know how to handle it. I agree with that. That's kind of how protests come about, and it's new, it's changed, and I think it's led to more awareness, and it's just scary at first. But ultimately, I do agree. Maybe there's another platform we can reach.
Absolutely. And I got one question for you before we move on, actually, from Sam Bagari. Thanks, Sam, for the question. He's wondering what your thoughts are on the Chargers and what they should do next. What's the next step for this organization?
If you watch that Thursday Night Football game, a disclaimer to maybe some people that don't know, we are in San Diego. We're broadcasting out of San Diego, and literally 5 miles down the road is Qualcomm Stadium. So we get a lot of local coverage of the Chargers. I think Mike McCoy, if he hadn't won that game on Thursday against the Broncos, he wouldn't be a coach right now. He wouldn't be the head coach.
But is this really his fault that they're losing all these games?
I think so, because
I don't put that on him.
And here's the thing. He coached his butt off on Thursday, and that's why they won. He's found the holes that he's built in his own organization, and he's addressed them. Now, he's got to do that going forward, but he created those holes in the first place. He's a good coach, but I think maybe it's not the right fit. I think having Ken Wisenhunt back again this year is going to help him going forward, but I think there's a better fit for him somewhere else. I think it's his fault.
I don't know that you can put that all on him. I mean, like you said, he's coached his butt off, and the Chargers, his team has just let him down, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That's not no amount of coaching in the world is going to make up for your team just giving up games and letting teams come back from 21 points down, or whatever the Chiefs did to them. I don't think you can pin it all on him. I think it's just kind of a tough go for the Chargers right now, especially losing guys like Keenan Allen on offense. That's never easy, and especially in the middle of this whole will they go, will they stay thing in San Diego.
But that brings up questions. That brings up questions of fitness and sustainability. I mean, there's always going to be injuries in the NFL. It's your job as a head coach to hire the right people to prevent that. Now, at the end of the day, having a head coaching job is always going to have a certain amount of liability, whether it's your fault or not, or whether you know about it or not. Take for example, when a CEO gets fired for a lower level employee, it's still going to be the CEO's fault, regardless.
Yeah, I don't know. These are all talented guys. They all belong in the NFL. The coaching staff, they know what they're doing. So that only goes so far. At a certain point, the players are going to have to help them out. They're going to have to make a play or do something that's going to win the Chargers a game. But they started turning around this week. Good win against the Denver Broncos, and hopefully they can keep things going. I know you and I are hopefully trying to get to that Chargers-Titans game later in the season.
That's right. I already have my tickets, actually.
We'll see how that one goes.
Absolutely.
But anyway, we talked about the NFL enough. let's move on to Major League Baseball because we have a big game tonight.
That's right. So the Cleveland Indians, speaking of Believe Land a bit ago.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? They're 2-1 favorites to win the World Series right now, and we'll get into those predictions a little later. But they take on the Toronto Blue Jays tonight, who are down 0-2 in the series. They are playing in Toronto at the Rogers Center. Who do you think takes this one?
Let me tell you, the Rogers Center is going to be rocking tonight. I believe the Blue Jays led Major League Baseball in attendance this year. Everyone in Toronto is going to be coming out. It'd be great to see Drake there or something. But everyone's going to be there. I think the Blue Jays pull this one out behind their ace, Marcus Stroman, one of my favorite Major League Baseball players. I hope he does well tonight. I think they get back on track. They get a win. They make the series 2-1, and they have a chance to even it up at home again tomorrow.
Yeah. But, if they, and I agree with you, I think they're going to win tonight. I put my money on it. But do you think if they win tonight and they're down 1-2, do you think they can get a win tomorrow as well in Toronto, or do you think that the Indians lock it up?
I think they can. They have one of the best offenses in Major League Baseball. That's one of the reasons that they're still playing right now in October. So you get a guy like Joey Bats going, Edwin Encarnacion, all those guys, that lineup, top to bottom, can hit. Yeah. And if you get them going, as soon as one guy gets hot, it's just going to trickle down the lineup, and they're going to start hitting like crazy. So I think they can definitely dig themselves out of this hole. It won't be easy. Mm-hmm. They're going to need a great performance from Stroman tonight, and they're going to need a great pitching performance tomorrow night as well. But it's certainly possible.
It is possible.
That being said, who do you take to win the series?
I honestly, with the way the Indians are playing and their health, I think that's a big factor in the MLB. Their health right now and their momentum at the end of the season, I will take the Cleveland Indians to make it to the World Series and sort of shock the world. Because I would have gone Cubs Blue Jays as my World Series pick like 4 months ago. But now with the Indians, the way they're coming in, I think the Indians take it.
Yeah, I think the Indians will definitely get to the World Series. I like to think that the Blue Jays will make it interesting, but with a 2-0 lead, that's going to say a lot. And the Indians, at the worst, will get a couple more home games if they need them later on in the series.
Yeah.
I think that'll be enough. Their pitching staff has been phenomenal this year. But what's interesting is I like to compare them to some of the Giants teams in the last couple of years that have won championships, for all my Bay Area fans listening back at home. These guys don't really have huge stars. I mean, they're great players and names that people will know, but when you look at some of the guys that are making a big impact for them, especially on offense, Francisco Lindor, someone who came up through their farm system, their shortstop, Mike Napoli, former Red Sox, Jason Kipnis. I mean, these are great players, but they're not the Major League Baseball household names that you're used to hearing necessarily.
And honestly, I'm okay with that. I think that's why. Yeah, I think that's why a big factor of why I would put them above, the Blue Jays in this series, because they have the depth. They have taken a strong approach, like the St. Louis Cardinals approach that they've taken in recent history. The Cardinals are never going to have really big household names. If they do, they might sell them off and get more sturdy pieces. I think that's why I respect the Indians, and that's why I like them going forward into the World Series. Now, on the other side of the thing, on the ball. I messed up that phrase. Other side of the ball, Cubs, Dodgers. Let's hear your analysis.
Yeah, another great series. Really disappointing that the Giants couldn't pull things out. I think they beat themselves more than the Cubs beat them. But I will move on and not harp on the Giants for too long. I guess you can't win a World Series if you have no bullpen. Anyway, I like the Cubs in this series. I think eventually they're going to just be too strong for the Dodgers. Despite the fact that the Dodgers got a great performance from their ace last night, Clayton Kershaw was phenomenal. They did just enough to win, even the series up at 1-1, but I think that's the only guy that the Dodgers can count on 100% like that to go out and get them a win. So I think the Dodgers may win another game or even two in this series, but the Cubs are gonna take it and get to the World Series and have a shot at winning for the first time in over 100 years.
Now, for those of you that don't know, we've known this since the beginning of the season. The Cubs are the overwhelming favorite to win. Some people even saying like 9-5 favorite, which is a heavy favorite coming into a a professional team league. Now, here's the thing: when you look at the Cubs, do you think they have the right amount of health? Do you think they have the right amount of depth to beat any team, whether it be the Dodgers, who they're tied with right now, or whoever comes out of the other side of things, whether it be the Blue Jays or the Indians?
I mean, they can beat anyone. You look at the Cubs, and like you said, they're the favorites to win for a reason. They're probably the best hitting team in the NL. I would put them and the Blue Jays as the two best hitting teams in the league. And it's scary to me to think about the fact you go back all the way to the beginning of the season and they lose a guy like Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
What if they had him right now? That's just another weapon they could have added to this lineup. Obviously, he's out for the season. They do not have Schwarber, but their lineup, again, top to bottom, is another one that can rake. And if they get hot, they're probably the most dangerous team in Major League Baseball. Like I said, I do think that they beat the Dodgers and meet the Indians in the World Series, and that's where things get interesting because, in my opinion, it's a toss-up. Both of these teams are good enough to win. I think the deciding factor would be pitching for whoever it is, the Indians or the Blue Jays that wind up playing the Cubs or Dodgers. Because if the Indians and Blue Jays can get their pitchers on a roll, then they're going to beat whoever they play. I mean, the Giants showed that even with their starting pitching struggling a little bit, they did pretty well against the Cubs. So if whoever gets that AL spot can keep that progress up, I think they have a legitimate shot at winning. Otherwise, the Cubs are going to hit 18 home runs and run away with it.
Now, yeah, so putting stats and strategy and pitching and fielding and ERAs and everything like that aside, it's got to be the Cubs, right? 100 years, 106 years, Wrigley Field in the World Series, Chicago.
But I don't know, it is the Cubs, so anything can happen.
Very clever, very clever. And you know, before we move on to another sport, it is 3:06 right now on the West Coast. You are listening to Bix and K on USD Radio, Facebook Live, on ufsdmedia.com. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to be doing this every Monday from 2:30 to about 3:50. And we're going to be talking everything sports. If you have any suggestions, things you want us to touch on, please write in the comments either on Facebook, on Bix's Facebook, or my Facebook. Before we move on out of the MLB, we have to mention Vin Scully's name at least once.
Man, yeah, it was really cool to see him do his last game. Actually, it was fitting. The last game that Vin Scully broadcasted was a Giants-Dodgers game, his childhood favorite team against the team he worked for so many years. And CSN Bay Area, the station that actually locally airs Giants games, did a really cool thing, I thought, which was during the third inning of that final game, they switched over to the Dodgers broadcast and broadcasted Vin Scully through that inning, which was really cool for me. I mean, radio commentary is what we do, albeit he was on TV.
Right.
But still, he's such an amazing figure, having been in the business for so long, and he's so incredibly talented at what he does. And I mean, for all my friends that know me back home, you know that I despise the Dodgers. I'm a huge Giants fan at heart, but this is the one time where I was actually really happy to listen to a Dodger broadcast, the end of Vin Scully's career. I mean, it's the end of an era. He changed the game. He was such an incredible figure, and I'm just glad I got to see him before he called it quits.
No two ways about it. You hear that name, you can think of the voice, and you can think of just his charm. And you're right. Right now we're doing sports talk radio, albeit this is not what I want to do professionally. But he's still such an inspiration and an icon for me to even be in this studio. It's sort of, for us, this is our first week back in the studio of the year, and it's just so wonderful for us to have our opinion shared over the airwaves. For him, he's been doing it for 50 plus years. I mean, that's the reason we're here right now, almost.
Yeah,
you could argue.
I mean, it was a heck of a career, and I'm glad I got to see it wrap up. For those of you who may not have seen Scully's farewell speech, I would really recommend it. It was one of the coolest things I heard all summer. Gave me the shivers. So if you get the chance to see that, definitely check it out. And if you don't know who Vince Scully is, Google his name, find out who he is. He's one of the best. He deserved it. So,
that's right.
Congratulations, Vin, on a wonderful career from a Giants fan.
That's right. Now moving on from baseball to soccer. Over sports talk radio in most cities in the U.S., we don't really get to hear soccer all that much. Always surprising to me, but you and I are both huge soccer fans, and we'd like to bring it onto the airwaves. Bix, you're an Arsenal fan. What is your reaction to Arsenal being sort of atop the table, almost? They're tied for first.
The Premier League is one of the leagues we like to cover the most just because it's the easiest. It gets the most media coverage already here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
But to your question, Kay, Arsenal sitting at second right now. I think they have a legitimate shot to maybe go for the title this year. A lot of people have talked about it the last couple of years. It's been building. You can always count on Arsenal to crash and burn come the new year a little bit. But who knows? Maybe they get it together this year. It definitely helps to be out in front right now. They're playing well. They managed to squeak by Swansea last week, which was solid for them. But they need to keep the momentum up, and they certainly will need to perform in games against bigger teams, which traditionally have been their downfall. They haven't been able to beat some of those top teams.
Right.
So if you can beat a Man City, if you can beat a Man U, if you can beat a Liverpool, any team like that, those points are probably the most important ones to get.
Yeah, and I agree with you as well. Last year I was saying, for those of you who listened to us last year, I was big on Guardiola's Man City. I think that they were going to run away with the title. They have the pieces in play. They have the money. They have now the coaching. But I don't know. Arsenal's looking pretty good. Every year we say, "Is this our year? Is this our year?" I'm not an Arsenal fan. I'm a Barcelona fan. But in the Premier League, I like for them to do well. But as a sorry Arsenal fan, is this our year?
We always like to think it is, don't we?
Always.
Like I said, they have the pieces to do it. It's just going to come down to how they can weather the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll perform at the beginning, they'll perform at the end, but it's going to be that long stretch in the middle. You have so many fixtures going on between the Premier League, the Champions League, and then players going out on international duty for World Cup qualifiers
and FA Cup.
friendlies and the FA Cup.
Right.
So they're going to need to hold up over the long winter. But if they can do that then and come out the other side, they certainly have a chance to take the title this year.
Right, and a quick overview of the Premier League table. We have Man City at top with 19 points. Arsenal with 19 as well, but just one goal differential behind. Tottenham Hotspur is there at 18 points at third place. Liverpool's at 17 after their draw with Manchester United earlier today, just about an hour ago. And Chelsea's sitting at fifth with Everton and Manchester United at 6th and 7th, respectively. Now, moving on to Champions League, we have an interesting matchup today. We have a couple interesting matchups this week, Manchester City, Barcelona. What are your initial thoughts on that? And who do you think is going to take it away?
Yeah, another big game. I'm going to say it again. I say it every time. I like Barcelona. I don't think Man City has really too much of a chance of beating them over two fixtures. So
and they are playing at home at the Camp Nou. And Messi's healthy.
Man City's a great team, sitting at the top of the Premier League, but I mean Barcelona's Barcelona, man.
That's right. No, quick little tidbit. This summer I got my first chance to go and visit the Camp Nou Museum. And if you have ever been in there, if you ever have a chance to go in there, you will see why we say Barcelona's Barcelona. They are the greatest team ever. They are my favorite team. But more importantly, that history, that tradition of La Masia and that stadium and the experiences that have happened in that stadium truly prove why they are the best team in the world.
Yeah, and really that Man City-Barca matchup is the only game this time around that's going to be that interesting. You look around the slate of games for Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and there's just not too much that stands out. I mean, the game to me that I would pick as the next most interesting is Lyon and Juventus.
Yeah.
Which, is far from a headliner game.
True.
But, I don't know. it's just one of those weeks where you're not going to get a ton of the star power teams playing each other. So
right, it's one of those weeks where you want to watch those individual power teams, see how they react against smaller teams. Like for example, you have Leicester City going against I can't even pronounce it. That's
I believe it's Copenhagen.
Oh, is it Copenhagen?
Yeah,
it's spelled differently.
Yeah, they spelled it.
Kested. But you want to watch and see how Leicester City is going to do if they have a chance to advance to the knockout rounds. You want to see if they can get it done against the smaller teams and then focus on defeating the powerhouses like Real Madrid and Man City and PSG.
Yeah, and now that you bring up Leicester City, that was a team I wanted to ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened to them this year? Because, as you mentioned, they've done great in the Champions League, unbeaten in their first 2 games, I believe. But when you look over at the Premier League, they're sitting in like 13th.
And you make a good point, and I want to draw a parallel to an NFL team that is struggling as well, the Carolina Panthers. So last year, both teams were really good, and me saying that, I don't want to undermine the fact that Leicester City did the impossible last year, and the fact that we even got to witness that was amazing.
That's still probably one of the coolest things we will ever see in sports.
That's right. We were able to.
I talked about that a lot last year, but
yeah.
For those of you who didn't listen to the show then, 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League.
3,000, but still.
I mean, that was the same odds of still finding Elvis alive or something like
That's
that.
That's right. And what was so cool about it is we actually got to do a show like minutes after they were able to clinch the Premier League title. Very cool. But, looking at the Carolina Panthers last year, 15-1, nobody could stop them. They had this flair. It was a small market team. They had, this riverboat run, and they had something with them. This year, they can't find it, and I think
the
maybe
riverboat is capsized this year.
That's right. Maybe egos have come into play. Maybe balancing expectations. Looking at the Champions League for Leicester, that maybe they got to focus more of their resources on that. It's all about the allocation. They're missing that flair, that what made them magical. They don't have it this year. But I don't think any of us really expected it to be.
I don't think we expected a repeat, but I didn't expect them to be in 13th.
That's right.
I think they're a top 10 team when it comes down to it.
It's a long season, though.
Yeah, they got some time. Hopefully they turn it around. I'm excited to see what they can do in the Champions League. And just a quick shout out here. I know Jason and Ben White out there listening on my Facebook Live. You guys were asking a couple questions about football. We spent a fair amount of time on the NFL, so we're moving on a little bit, but we will get back to some football questions in rapid fire later on. So thank you guys for the questions. Everyone out there, keep them coming. And yeah, we'll just keep on plugging.
Right, you're listening to Bix and K. It's 3:17 on the West Coast. We are going to end the show around 3:50. And thank you so much for listening and sticking on with us. I know soccer, for a lot of people in the U.S., are one of the more drier subjects. So unless it's the World Cup, which everyone knows about. But
yeah, speaking of some of those more exciting competitions, though, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Euro Championship from this summer. Your first thoughts on how that played out? I know it was a little bit of an odd tournament. Couple surprises in there. What were some of your highlights and lowlights?
I was able to actually be in Paris during the Euros, which is really cool. You could feel sort of the speciality of France hosting it. It was in the air. France, as the home country, of course, they didn't win. They lost to Portugal. Besides the actual key matchup of the final and Portugal winning it all, I think it was a very great tournament. I think we had some really cool stories to come out of it. Iceland, for example. I think we had a lot of great moments that we can reflect on and say this was a great tournament. But the problem with it was the fact that Portugal won, in my opinion. I don't think they deserved to win, but they did.
Yeah.
And you're a French. Bix right here. He's a French fan.
That was a tough one to take for sure. Sorry, everyone listening on my Facebook Live. We don't have the best setup here, so it might fall over a couple times, but stick with us.
We're getting there, though.
We're getting there. Like you said, I'm a huge French fan. My dad is from France. Grew up. I was named after a French soccer player.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say it's in my blood. But Yeah, I think I went and locked myself in my room for about an hour after France lost. That was just depressing, especially to lose in the way that they did against a much weaker Portugal team and
Missing Ronaldo.
But that was what scared me.
Yeah.
I knew as soon as he went down, they would band together and actually play as a team.
You sent me a
for
text
once.
and you were like, uh-oh.
Yeah. I was upset for a while, but you can't fault Portugal for playing the way that they did. They knew that they were outclassed, and they did what they needed to do to get a result, and it worked.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know that kind of leads in the U.S. women's soccer team this summer actually was a little upset at the Olympics because I believe they fell to Sweden.
Sweden. That's right.
And they
in the quarterfinals.
They had kind of a similar situation in which Sweden was definitely the weaker team, but they did what they needed to do to win.
Yeah.
And many people are going to see that and not like it at all. They don't play flashy. They don't try to win. They just defend, and counterattack on the one chance they get. But if you know you're outclassed, what are you going to do? You're not going to roll over. That's how you're going to get a result. So props to them. Props to Portugal. Rough seeing France lose. But overall, I think it was a really fun tournament.
I think so, too. They really handled France, that is, handled the hosting job very well. They did a good job in making sure the games received the importance that they deserve to receive. And that was seen in the games in Bordeaux and Nice, Lyon, Paris, of course. Great tournament, and I'm glad we got a chance to witness it.
Yeah, and it went off kind of without a hitch, I guess. I know
That's right,
last
yeah,
year we had talked about a lot of the safety concerns, especially with some of the bombings that happened last year in France during one of the French national team games, actually. But luckily, it seems like everything went pretty smoothly, at least during the tournament, which is always good to see.
Yes, of course.
But you love seeing teams like Iceland,
yeah.
too, go on such a fantastic run.
That's right.
That's just incredible. I mean, beating a powerhouse like England, who'd have thought?
Yeah, and have you seen that the Minnesota Vikings have actually taken up that Icelandic chant?
Yeah, they have adopted their chant. Seems like everyone's doing that these days.
Hey, it seems to work, right? They're the only undefeated team in the league.
I guess so. I mean, that's one of the cool things about soccer. You take a country with 330,000 people, I believe. I mean, for those of you listening from back home, that's less than half the size of San Francisco. And you take a country of that size, stick their soccer team up against a world powerhouse like England, and they take them down, that's unbelievable.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you can't even overlook the fact that actually happened. Now I want to move on to college football. I think some of our listeners are, they kind of raised themselves in their seats because college football has been very fun to watch this summer, and there's a lot to talk. Not this summer, this season, and there's a lot to talk about. Initial reactions to how the season has gone so far, and then we'll get into some questions.
It's been an interesting season. It's been a mix because about half the time, exactly what was predicted to happen has come true.
Yeah.
We've had the traditional powerhouses, like Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, come through and be the teams that we thought they would be, especially in the face of adversity. But then you have a team like Washington who's cracked the top 5, or Louisville that were talented teams coming into the season, but I don't know that anyone had them where they are at this point in the season.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that I have a follow-up question on that. Speaking of Louisville, not Washington, Louisville. Is Lamar Jackson legit? And I mean that let's think, is he going to go to the league? Is he going to win the Heisman? And can he take his team to the playoff?
Right now, I think he is legit. I mean, there are a lot of factors that you have to consider, though, going into this. There aren't enough adjectives and superlatives to describe how amazing this guy has been this season. One stat I saw a few weeks into things was that ESPN had calculated the cumulative points that every team in college football had scored throughout the season, and Louisville was on top. They had the most points scored, and tied in third with a bunch of other schools was Lamar Jackson, single-handedly.
Really?
By himself.
Wow.
And so that just gives you some sort of idea of what this kid has been able to accomplish. What I'm interested in seeing is how he can lead his team the rest of the season, and honestly, what he will look like a year from now. Because he's faced some adversity already. Unfortunately, Louisville lost to Clemson. That was a close game. I was rooting for him. They couldn't pull it out, but he showed how resilient he is as a quarterback, and he's really a leader on that team. What will be interesting to see is how he can carry that demeanor through the season and on to the next, because he will be coming back next year, which will probably be his last year in college. And a lot of people talk about when someone breaks out, they're going to have a great first year, but once everyone's seen the tape, once everyone's had an offseason to study him, how's he going to look against top teams next year? And that is going to be the real teller as to how he will be able to survive in the NFL if he is drafted.
And that's why I argue I don't think he does come back next year, because he has the option to go to the league after this year. Why not go out when you're on top before people figure out you're sort of I don't want to say a fraud, but they'll be able to play against you a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And my follow-up question: if he goes to the league, do you think he goes as a quarterback or a running back?
I think he goes as a quarterback. I don't think he's necessarily big enough to be an NFL running back, but part of the reason I think he stays another year is he needs to work on his passing game.
Mm.
That's what's going to help him survive in the NFL when and if he gets there, because he's got all the athletic tools right now. He can run, he can move around really well. It's going to be about honing in that accuracy, becoming a better pocket passer. That is what's going to get him on scouts' radars, and that is what's going to get him drafted. So I believe he comes back next year, much like a Deshaun Watson kind of situation, his counterpart at Clemson, in order to refine his skills. Because even if Louisville doesn't have the same type of season they did this year, next year, he's still going to be an NFL talent. And you look at some of the other quarterbacks that are most likely going into the draft this year with a Deshaun Kaiser or a Deshaun Watson. I think he's better suited for next year's draft class, and he will be successful if he works on his game.
And I want to ask you real quick. We've always seen the SEC sort of be the dominant conference. There's always been an argument that maybe the SEC is not as strong this year and whatnot. But I think this season in particular, I think the SEC has shown that they are a team conference to mess with. But what about the Big 12? If you were to line up the best of the best in the SEC and the best of the best in the Big 12 in a sort of tournament of who's the best, who would you take?
That's a tough question, because traditionally the SEC has been the powerhouse, but you look at what's happening this year, and it's a little different. And I mean, I still have to go with the SEC overall, I would think, because I think they play tougher competition. And
I actually meant to say the Big Ten.
The Big Ten. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Big 12 is like Iowa State. Big
yeah.
10's like Michigan.
I think the SEC is probably still the better conference, but the Big Ten gives them a run for their money. You look at the college football standings right now. Alabama's sitting at 1, and Texas A&M is at 6, and those are the only two SEC representatives in the AP top 10. Whereas you look at Ohio State, Michigan, and like a Wisconsin, these are really good teams.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see them stacked up against each other in a potential playoff where Alabama would get either an Ohio State or a Michigan, because that would be a pretty good teller. But I think Alabama's alone at the top right now. I know we've said that before, and they've fallen, but it's hard to see anyone challenging them until a potential playoff.
I see your point, and I think a big thing I want to say regarding this season and this argument, the Big Ten has a lot of coaching ability, has a lot more coaching ability compared to the SEC. I wouldn't take an SEC coach if I was an NFL GM. I wouldn't take an SEC coach. I think it's a different system, and I think if you pin them up against each other, I think maybe the SEC wins in talent. But Big 12, the coaching ability, the way they're able to turn around so quickly, like
that's where the Big Ten would win it.
Yeah, if you look at Jim Harbaugh, if you look at Urban Meyer, I think coaching matters in college more, and there's more to coaching than people think it is. It's not just drawing up plays. It's the way you are able to turn these kids, so to speak, into world-class athletes ready for the NFL. And I think that's where the Big Ten sort of differs from the SEC. But in raw talent, maybe I'd go SEC, most likely.
I would have to agree with that. That's why I say the SEC is better still, just because they have more raw talent coming in, and that's what makes them so good. And if you put them under a coach like a Nick Saban, they're really going to flourish and do well. I mean, he's shown us that over the last couple of years. But like you said, in terms of coaching and in terms of how the players are handled, I think that's where the Big Ten has a little bit of an advantage. They've been so good this year, especially even some of their teams that aren't at the top, like a Nebraska and like a Penn State. They're extremely talented. And I'd love to see a couple games in the future between like an Ole Miss and a Nebraska. I know that probably won't happen, but it would be interesting. They're definitely, both of those conferences are at the top and the premier conferences in college football. So I can't wait till the playoff until we see who really is the best of the best.
And I want to point out one specific Big Ten coach, and I'm going to paint you a picture real quick, and I want to hear your reaction to it. In 2 years, it's 2018. 2019.
2018.
The confetti is falling.
You do math at USD.
No, I mean for the championship. The confetti is falling, and Jim Harbaugh is lifting up that trophy at the end of the season. Do you think after that he looks at Michigan and says, "Okay, look, my work here is done at my alma mater," and moves on again to the NFL and picks up a head coaching vacancy?
I don't think so. I don't know too many head coaches, especially in college, that would win a national championship and then go running. That hasn't happened in recent years. And especially with a guy like Harbaugh, I just don't think that that's in his DNA. Disappointed as I was as a big Niner fan to lose him, because I think he's a phenomenal coach, I think no matter what, this guy would have wound up somehow back in the NCAA and should be in the NCAA, because I think that's where he fits. He's a great coach and has shown that he can be successful at the NFL level, but for him, I think it is so much more enjoyable to go coach players that want to play for their school and for pride. Not saying that NFL players aren't playing for pride and whatnot, but when there's money involved and all these contracts and that kind of thing, I think that turned him off a little bit, and that's part of the reason he left to go back to Michigan. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity for him, but he's shown he can win, and he deserves to be at Michigan. He's a great coach. I see him lifting the national championship this year, if not sometime in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love the move for him. I don't see why he would go. Great coach. Always like to remind people that he started out at USD a number of years back.
That's right.
So go Toreros. And I think it's a good fit for him.
And before we give our playoff predictions for this season, I want to speak real quick about the dominance of the University of Washington. There you go, Max. I shouted them out. The University of Washington have kind of been a very surprise pick. They've been very good. They've been very strong. Is that more a testament to the weaker Pac-12 or the fact that they're just falling out?
Like you mentioned, the Pac-12 is weak this year, but I think Washington is as good as any Pac-12 team we've seen in the last couple of years, especially when you think about some of those Stanford teams that have been so talented, and obviously being a Stanford fan, another team of mine that crashed and burned this year, it was hard to see them go through a couple tough losses and ultimately probably end their playoff hopes. But Washington they're it for the Pac-12. If they want a representative, it's got to be Washington. I think the Huskies have the ability to do it. I think they're going to win out personally, and they will need help from a team like, you look at Florida State, who's got Clemson on the docket in the next week or two. If Florida State can beat Clemson, I think Washington would move up into that fourth spot and maybe steal a playoff spot, which would be great for the Pac-12 because that hasn't happened before.
That's true. I guess we are in the infant years of the playoff, but it's got to happen soon, right? And also, you mentioned Stanford, and that kind of ties into my Heisman ask for you. Do you think Christian McCaffrey still has a shot? And if not, who do you think takes the Heisman this year?
I don't think he has a shot at this point. Unfortunately, he's an extremely talented young man. I think he should have gotten the award last year. I think that was his year. And if you're going to set all those records and have the most total yards from scrimmage out of anyone ever, you deserve the Heisman. And the fact that he didn't get it last year was appalling.
I'm okay with Derrick Henry getting it.
But if he's going to not get the award last year, I don't see how he would win it this year. He's still extremely talented. He's going to be in the conversation until the end of the season, but he missed this last week's game against Notre Dame, and that's going to hurt him in the end because college football, you only get a finite amount of games,
right.
And if you can't make it to even one or two of those, that's just less yards to rack up, less time for people to see you, and especially in a game like Notre Dame that's a primetime game where more people will be able to watch, the fact that he wasn't able to play is going to hurt him as well.
So who takes it?
Lamar Jackson, if he keeps this up.
Yeah.
He's got to be the front runner.
I'd give it to Deshaun.
I'll give it to Deshaun if he leads his team to a national championship.
Yeah, okay. Well, they'll decide the Heisman before the national championship.
True. But
I think
I still see Lamar as when you talk about the most valuable player to a team,
sure.
It has to be him.
Yeah, I think a big factor is I think Lamar is just a September Heisman. I think it's dying out, but we will see, right?
We'll
Okay.
see about that.
Before we move on to rapid fire, we have about 15 minutes left in the show. You're listening to Bix and K. It's 3:35. We're going to be on every Monday from 2:30 to 3:50. That's 5-0. Talking sports and a little bit of everything in sports. All right, we're about 7 weeks into the college football season. What is your playoff prediction?
At this point, I'm liking what I'm seeing at the top of the standings right now. I think Alabama holds on to the number one spot. I don't see them getting knocked off. Ohio State and Michigan will be in the conversation. They will play each other once before the end of the season. I think regardless of who loses that game, as long as they both win out the rest of the time, they would both potentially be in the college football playoff. I like Michigan personally to win the game. I think Harbaugh's gonna pull it out. He got unlucky a little bit last year. I think Michigan beats Ohio State, takes over the number 2 spot. I believe I'm gonna go bold statement with Florida State beating Clemson, so Washington going undefeated would move up to that 3 spot, and Ohio State would come in at 4. So you're looking at Alabama, Ohio State, and Michigan, Washington, with Michigan and Alabama meeting in the national championship.
Okay. I'm going to have to differ a little. I think the way it stands right now is the way it's going to be. We're going to see Alabama taking on Clemson. I think those are 2 really solid programs and really solid coaching. Alabama's going to finish the season at number 1, but Clemson stays in at 4, with Dabo Swinney sort of winning out the rest of the season to the best of his ability. And then Ohio State Michigan is going to be that 2-3 game at the.
But let me ask you this: if Ohio State and Michigan have to play, which they do, one of them's going to lose.
Yeah.
And if a team like Clemson goes undefeated, would they not jump that losing team? If they lose one game,
I think Clemson loses a game between now and then.
And you still think they get the 4 spot?
Yeah.
Even with potentially a team like Washington going undefeated.
Yeah, I think, and you make a point that Washington's in a weak Pac-12, so they will likely go undefeated. But I just don't think Washington's there, and I think the committee might recognize that. Because also, you got to keep in mind, and as great as the college football playoff has been in terms of progression, the NCAA is just money hungry. They're going to want the best for fan bases to be in the.
But how do you make that argument even if Clemson loses a game? Washington has arguably done all they can do. If they go undefeated, they beat Stanford, who's the defending champion, 44 to, whatever it was, 44 to 16, I think. Mm-hmm. That was a thumping. I mean, they beat Oregon. They put up 70 points against Oregon. They've done everything that they can possibly do, and if they go undefeated, I don't see how you can keep them out of the playoff because there's literally nothing else they can do. Then is it an issue with the Pac-12? How do you get a team from the Pac-12 in a playoff if someone like Washington goes undefeated and beats the best contenders by 30 to 50 points?
And here's the thing: I think Washington might go undefeated. They probably will go undefeated. And I still think Clemson loses the game, but I think it's going to be a big upset at the end of the season. Not on the game, but when they announce that college football playoff, Washington's not going to be in it, and people are going to get mad. I think that's just the way it's going to work. And
Okay.
I'm saying that as a realist of what the NCAA is trying to do here.
Is the system broken
Yeah.
then?
Yeah.
And how do you fix that?
8 teams.
All
I was
right.
ready for those.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm a proponent of the 8-team playoff as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can see that a couple years down the road. That would certainly help out teams like the Pac-12 or divisions like the Pac-12. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't see them holding Washington out if they go undefeated, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. And so Kay's final picks, my final picks. Alabama against Clemson, 1-4. Ohio State against Michigan, 2-3. Michigan wins. I think actually Michigan might be the 2 spot in that game, but Michigan wins regardless against Alabama, and I think Alabama wins it again this year.
So you also have Michigan, Alabama in your national championship.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going Michigan.
Okay.
Michigan over Alabama.
All right. Good luck, man. Okay, it is 3:41, almost 3:41, and so that leaves just enough time to get into our rapid fire. So for those of you that don't know, who are on our new Facebook feeds, who maybe are freshmen and are tuning in, didn't even think of that.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Our show setup is usually we talk about a lot of sports because we are Sports Talk, and at the end we leave room for rapid fire. So we take this time to just ask questions to each other and get the first answer that pops into our head. I'd like to think of Bix and I as pretty good sort of gaugers of the temperature that is sports right now, and maybe give an answer that best represents maybe our region, our opinions, and other people's opinions.
Yeah, that's some high praise for SK. I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Kay mentioned, him being an East Coast guy, myself being a West Coast guy, we have differing opinions. We like to get into some rapid fire questions at the end of our show. We're extending it a little bit this week. Normally it's shorter, but we had so much happen over the summer that we do want to touch on a couple things before we end our show. So let's go for it, Kay. Hit me with it.
All right. So we're gonna get into what happened this summer, like Bix just mentioned. The first question I want to ask you is Rio Olympics. Obviously, a huge sporting event, a huge political event. Did it go according to plan in your mind, and was it a success?
I think it was as successful as it was going to be. When you look at some of the surrounding circumstances, people were afraid that Rio wasn't going to be ready. Crime was an issue that was really high on people's radars. And for the most part, that aspect of the games, the outside influences, didn't have too much of an effect. It all went pretty smoothly from that respect, besides Ryan Lochte. Right? I mean, that's a whole nother deal. So from that aspect, the games went really well. The problem was that the games themselves were interesting and exciting, but were they interesting enough?
No.
I think the Olympics in the last couple of years have kind of fallen off for whatever reason, and it's hard. Like, people just aren't as interested as they were a decade ago.
Yeah, and I think that reflects on NBC's coverage of the Olympics as well. Okay, let's move on. Rapid fire.
All right, so Kay, my question for you is, what was the best thing that happened this summer for you, and what was the worst thing that happened in sports?
Honestly, the best thing that happened in sports over the summer would have to be Cleveland winning the championship. I know you're a Golden State guy.
No, that was the worst.
I think that had to have happened for that city and the sports history that comes with it. And two, honestly, it's really hard for me to hate LeBron James. I know he gets a lot of criticism. I know you give him a lot of criticism, but it's hard for me to hate him. I think he's a stand-up guy, stand-up citizen, and he deserved it, and he deserved to win it for that city. On the worst thing that happened, honestly, it would have to go back to the Olympics. I just think it was just a poor product. And might that reflect on Brazil's current state? Might that reflect on the IOC or NBC's coverage of it? I honestly, with all the hype surrounding it, as it is the Olympics every 4 years, I don't know. Wasn't feeling it, man.
All right.
All right. Question for you regarding the summer season of sports. What do you think was the biggest off-season acquisition in any sport?
In any sport,
Yeah.
oh, it'd have to be Kevin Durant.
Okay.
That's just, I mean, you don't see something like that very often with a star coming to a team that's already power-packed. And as a Golden State Warriors fan, I couldn't be more excited. I know people love to hate us now, but it's going to be a great season. Doesn't matter. Don't go get the regular season record. Leave that alone.
Yeah.
Just win enough games to get the number 1 seed and bring another championship back to the Golden State. Get it away from LeBron.
Yeah, well, we'll, and speaking of which, before we move on to our next question, next week will be the first Monday before the NBA season starts, so we'll have a lot more exclusive coverage of the National Basketball Association. We'll get into that nitty and gritty.
Absolutely. So, my question for you, Kay, is reactions on Bob Bradley, the first U.S. manager ever in the Barclays Premier League, coaching for Swansea.
I like the move, and the biggest stat I saw is you would have to move really far down the totem pole to find the first English manager on that Premier League table. So why not take a shot at an American guy who's proven himself in Egypt, proven himself in at the U.S. Soccer Federation, and honestly, why not? They're at the bottom of the table facing relegation. Maybe you can turn things around. All right, my next question. It's not a story we'd like to have found out about, but looking at Jose Fernandez of the Miami Marlins, who passed away tragically a few weeks ago, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have any reflection?
Yeah, that was certainly, I mean, probably for me, the worst thing that's happened over the last couple months. Anyone that follows Major League Baseball or is familiar with the sport knows who Jose Fernandez was. I mean, star pitcher for the Miami Marlins. This kid was on the verge of getting a max-out contract and becoming one of the faces of Major League Baseball. Such a great guy, such a talented player, and it's just incredibly sad to witness something like what happened. No one ever expects to go that soon, and it was a tragedy for his family, for Major League Baseball, and for a huge Cuban American population in Miami. I mean, he was essentially their American dream.
That's right.
And it's heartbreaking to lose something like that, and certainly our condolences go out to Fernandez's friends and family and the Major League Baseball community.
And the people of Miami. I mean, they were.
And the people of Miami. So may he rest in peace. And yeah, moving on from that, Kay, I wanted to ask you about Paul Pogba, one of the most polarizing figures in world soccer the last couple months. This will he, won't he go? He's at Man U now. He made the move. Thoughts so far on how he's done?
Yeah, he's definitely not lived up to the dollar amount that he's been signed for, right? But I think he provides a lot of solidification for that fan base to have a true attacking midfielder who's going to make moves. I always thought Paul Pogba was a little overrated. If he, and this is a hot take, if he hadn't have scored that amazing wonder goal that spread around every single social media when he was at Juventus, I don't think he would have gotten that amount. I don't think he deserves that amount, but I hope that for a team like Manchester United, I hope he shows up for them. And against Jose Mourinho, you either become a star or you become Juan Mata.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so my last question for you and for the show, looking back over the summer, do you think that the hype of Deflategate I know we don't want to talk about this, but there was a lot more that came out over the summer in terms of the reaction, the reflection, the suspension. Do you think that has hurt the NFL overall and the opinion of the NFL? Because as we know, the ratings of the NFL are down 19% this year. What are your thoughts?
It's definitely hurt them a lot, especially with Roger Goodell at the helm of everything that people seem to be pointing out has gone bad with the NFL. So many players are coming out and calling him a dictator almost, and that's spilling over into the fan base, and I mean, especially Patriots fans.
Right.
But in general, I think, yes, that the whole Deflategate scandal, that has hurt the league. It's more than just that. It's a complicated issue, but that's the reason for some of the numbers being down this year. I think the NFL has the potential to make those numbers bounce back, but it certainly did them no favors, and Goodell did no favors to the rest of the NFL by pissing off Tom Brady, because he's back, and he's back with a vengeance.
That's right. And speaking of being back with a vengeance, this was our first show. I think it went pretty well, right? Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. We're going to be on every Monday from 2:30 to 4 on the West Coast.
Yeah, so you can either listen on my Facebook Live or
My
on
Facebook.
K's over on this side, or, as always, on uofsdmedia.com, 2:30 to 4. Bix and K, one more time. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Take care, guys.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank
Hope
you,
to see you
guys.
next week.
Yes, we will tune in. For everybody that doesn't know,